And Joe, not really a waiver wire question because, again, Wilson was picked up everywhere last week. But my question to you is there a chance that Wilson just operates as the de facto wide receiver one in this offense for the rest of the year with Harrison Jr. taking a backseat? How do you put this back in the bag? Jacoby Brissett has targeted this guy 33 times in the last 2 weeks. Besides Malik Neighbors and Puka Nacua, there hasn't really been a wide receiver targeted at this volume in 2 consecutive weeks like over the last 2 years.
No, I don't think you can put this back in the 2. I don't think you can put this back in the 2 at all. There's just no chance. I mean, like Michael Wilson's had 2 games that Marvin Harrison's never had before. Now, maybe the way Jacoby Brissett is playing also gives Marvin Harrison a little bit of a boost. But no, this is not going back in the tube. And I would say until further notice, I would take a guess that we will be having Michael Wilson projected ahead of Marvin Harrison.
What? Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.
Week 13 waiver wire ads. We're talking about which players you should pick up, which players you can put in your lineup, which players you should be stashing. Theo Greminger with Tom Brawley and Joe Dolan on Fantasy Football Daily on the Fantasy Points Podcast Network. Guys, Alvin Kamara, MCL injury. Is Devin Neal the late season savior? And is he a potential player that can have an impact on the fantasy football playoffs? Tom, your expectations for Devin Neal. We were sort of excited about him. I remember being down at the Senior Bowl with you guys. Devin Neal was an incredibly productive player at Kansas. We thought during the Senior Bowl, maybe he would get drafted on day 2. He fell in the NFL draft. You know, there's certainly been a number of these rookies that have hit this year. But Devin Neal coming out of college had a really fantasy-friendly profile.
Yeah, and we've gotten to see it a little bit. He's been working in some passing situations, and he got a little bit of work in the passing game in Week 12. So definitely has the type of profile we're looking for, a guy that can contribute both on the ground and through the air. So, but is he the savior? I wouldn't go that far. This is still a very bad team down in New Orleans. Scored just 10 points in Week 12 against a bad Falcons team. So we also saw Taysom Hill heavily involved down by the goal line. So don't know if he's going to get a ton of scoring opportunities. So he's going to have to catch passes. But this is still a situation this late in the year, especially if you're a little thin at the running back position. I would be spending the rest of my FAAB. I would use my waiver priority to pick him up because it does look like Alvin Kamara can miss multiple weeks here, if not the entire rest of the season. So this is a situation where, I kind of categorize him as like a low-end RB2. Maybe there's a little bit of upside here because of that passing game ability, but the backfield's kind of thin behind him too. We've had Kendry Miller already done for the season. They picked up Audric Estime. He's the backup right now, so not a real big threat behind him. So I do think we're going to get an extended look here at Neal, potentially in a bell cow role, but still a bad offense. Still Taysom Hill potentially stealing goal line touches to limit some of that ceiling potential while Kamara's out.
Joe, anything to add here? Devin Neal did have 5 catches for 43 yards. Obviously, the game flow lent itself, but could he have a little bit more juice than maybe Kamara showed at any point over the last month and a half?
Yeah, I think he might. I think that's a justifiable thing to expect because we were talking off air. I don't know how good the Saints are at self-scouting because they are just running Taysom Hill directly into offensive linemen. And he's 36 years old, and I don't understand what they're doing with that. So maybe there's a chance Devin Neal has been more kind of explosive than Alvin Kamara, and they just refuse to put him on the field. But I think best case scenario for Devin Neal, at least realistic, is look at what Ashton Jeanty did against the Browns yesterday behind an offensive line that cannot block for the run in a bad offense. He averaged 2.9 yards per carry, but he caught 8 passes and also scored a receiving touchdown. I think that's best case scenario for Devin Neal. Should he be added? He should be added in every single league. Am I expecting him to be a league winner? I'm not, but I think he can be one of the wheels on the bus of your championship team in the event that you've really been kind of rotating RB2s and flexes.
Yeah, I think with the two-way ability, we can project him to be sort of a low-end RB2. and a potential, that can really, really help you this time of year, especially when we're talking about there's more bye weeks coming up in week 14. Devin Neal is definitely going to be a helpful player to add. Joe, let's stay with you. Do we think?
Hey, can I add real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
The schedule is really good for Devin Neal and the Saints coming down the stretch. It's one of the best running back schedules. They got Miami next week. Tampa Bay is not great, but Carolina, Jets, and Tennessee down the stretch. So at the very least, it is a schedule that he could have some success against.
100%. Joe, let's go back to you on this one. Do we think we have an idea about what this Washington Commanders backfield is going to look like? Chris Rodriguez had a 15-carry, 79-yard performance against Miami in Madrid. The Washington Commanders have 2 games in the fantasy playoffs against the Dallas Cowboys. Your thoughts on Rodriguez? Do you think this could be a rug pull situation, or do you anticipate another game with him having somewhere in the realm of 15 touches?
I don't see why they wouldn't give him that based on how he has performed when given that role. The one thing I will say, though, about Dallas is you can't look at Dallas as being the same matchup that it was even 3 weeks ago. Acquiring Quinnen Williams and getting DeMarvion Overshown back has given that run defense a huge boost. So I don't know if that matchup is nearly as juicy as it was on the ground as a couple of weeks ago. But I do anticipate Chris Rodriguez will be the Commanders' lead running back.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Tom, are you also in the Rodriguez camp here?
Yeah, I am, especially if they continue to stick with Marcus Mariota. We don't have any indication just yet if Daniels is coming back after this bye week, but it does feel like they're trying to switch their identity a little bit with Marcus Mariota quarterback. They don't want to drop him back 30, 35 times per game if they don't have to. So it seems like 2 weeks ago they were starting to get Rodriguez going. He got that shoulder injury, kind of left the game early, but we saw it in that Madrid game. They were feeding him the rock in that game. So I do think that they're kind of trying to lean into this power running game, just trying to keep the ball out of Mariota's hands, especially while Terry McLaurin is also out. So if I miss on Devin Neal this week, I do think Chris Rodriguez is a good add here, but I don't know if he's going to be a difference maker. It's definitely one of those guys maybe I'll throw in to a flex spot in the fantasy playoffs, but I don't know if there's a whole lot of upside right now in this Washington backfield.
Yeah, it's been a mess of a backfield, but Rodriguez did have the most rushing yards by a Commander since Ja'Cory Krusky-Merritt in Week 5. I think that's something they'll continue to build on. Rodriguez has been in the building with this coaching staff now for 2 years, got a familiarity with them. I think they'll use him down the stretch, and I don't know if I would much rather have Devin Neal, but I do think Chris Rodriguez is a player to roster that you could potentially use in sort of an ugly spot start situation if you absolutely need him. Let's talk about the Quinshon Judkins situation. Judkins gets banged up, comes back in the game. Dylan Sampson, though, looks really, really good on that one catch and run opportunity. Tom, what's Dylan Sampson's value here? Any recent updates with Judkins?
Yeah, I think he's worth a pickup here. At Judkins, it looked like he was getting looked at for a potential concussion. He did come back into the game, but he was kind of in and out of the lineup the rest of the way here. So, and we did get to see Sampson in Week 12. I mean, he really helped those Shedeur Sanders the final stat line there with taking the short pass and taking it to the house. So maybe they should try to get him a little bit more involved in the passing game anyway. So I think at the very least, he's worth picking up, just in case there's something that happens to Judkins over the next couple of weeks, or maybe he pops up into the protocol after the fact here this week. So, but he definitely showed a little bit of improvement on his increased touches this past week. So maybe there's a little bit of hope that he can, maybe get 6 or 8 touches per game moving forward if Judkins does end up staying in the lineup.
Yeah, and he sort of continues the youth movement we've seen in Cleveland this year. A lot of Judkins. We've certainly seen Isaiah Bond sort of woke up a little bit on the deep reception from Shedeur Sanders, the quarterbacks, and then Harold Fannin Jr., who we were recommending before the season as a pickup, has relegated David Njoku down to like a 0. So very much a youth movement in Cleveland. Joe, another running back who took a knock yesterday was Ashton Jeanty. Now, Jeanty's walking off the field on his own power, but it looks to me like Jeanty could potentially miss a game or two. That's just speculation here. It's an ankle injury, so we'll know a little bit more about this based on the practice reports. But we have an interesting situation where Raheem Mostert was running as the backup running back, but Zamir White's been inactive. Could this be one of those situations where if Jeanty's out, Zamir White is more valuable? Or do you think it would be Raheem Mostert leading the backfield? I can't believe we're having this conversation, Joe. But
this is
pain. It's pain for you.
This is desperation right now. Utter desperation, because like I anticipate it'll be more of a rotation on a team that can't run the football. So I actually kind of agree with you. I think Zamir White would be the lead back, and they'd put in Raheem Mostert on passing downs. But I mean, this team is awful. Chip Kelly, one of the great charlatans in the history of football, gets fired. Is Pete Carroll next? This is scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I understand it. Like, you might need to be scraping the bottom of the barrel. So I think Zamir White would probably be kind of the lead guy, but I would prefer Mostert just because I feel like he could do more as a receiver.
Yeah, Tom, anything to add on that one? And Tom, what do you think about throwing Chip Kelly's name into the hat for the Penn State coaching search?
No, hey, stay away. Don't talk to him at all. I'd much rather keep Terry Smith if that's the scenario. So Raheem Mostert, I think, is still the best play here. We've seen Jeanty, a lot of his best success has been in the passing game here, just because they cannot run the ball. This offensive line has performed horribly in recent weeks. So I would prefer Mostert, and we know that they're going to be probably trailing most weeks here. I have them power rated as the second worst team in the league right now, only ahead of the Titans. So they're going to be in probably a lot of trailing game states. So if there's a scenario here where, hey, they might sit out Jeanty. This team is going nowhere fast. They did use a top 10 pick on them. If there's any concern for aggravating this injury, we could see him sit out a week. But if I'm plugging and playing somebody in case of a Jeanty absence, I'm going for Raheem Mostert, no doubt about it.
I'm probably Mostert. It feels a lot like when we were talking about like the Michael Carter, Zonovan Knight situation, where opportunities and touches, even in ugly situations, can sometimes lead to a random 15 to 18 point week. It's going to have to get there with the back catching the ball. This team is having problems, and Joe, you've talked about sort of the matchup here and the opportunity, Tom, with the pass catching. So I sort of lean into that. I don't know, though. This is a situation that I would like to avoid unless completely desperate. Quick go around, guys. It's Thanksgiving week. What is your number one waiver wire pickup on Thanksgiving dishes? What's your favorite Thanksgiving food? Joe, let's start with you on this one.
It's mac and cheese.
Okay, simple.
And now apparently, I'm from the north, and I never had mac and cheese on Thanksgiving growing up. I don't know why. Mac and cheese is a great food for any of that. I'm literally going to the grocery store after this and getting my ingredients to make the mac and cheese. My wife doesn't eat turkey, so I actually ordered turkey from a local restaurant, which is great because it'll be better than anything I was going to make anyway, but my mac and cheese is unassailable. That is my Thanksgiving side dish.
What are the number of cheeses that go in on the Joe Dolan mac and cheese recipe? Well,
I'll see what they have in the cheese section, but at least 3. You need a sharp cheese. You need a creamy one that melts well. So like you can even shred up some like American cheese slices to throw in there. You can put some cream cheese in there. So you want one sharp, one in the middle, and one that's kind of on the creamier side. And then on top, you put either Cheez-Its or breadcrumbs. So
I like that one.
I'm getting hungry here. Yeah, I'm a dressing guy. I love dressing. But I gotta say, my brother-in-law, he started smoking turkey. My sister hosts now, and the last couple of years, he smokes his turkey, and it is absolutely delicious. So I was always a dressing guy, but I'm kind of the weirdo. I do like the turkey a lot. I know a lot of people like to pass on turkey, and I do like it as a leftover, but smoking the turkey is definitely it's moved up the list because of that.
Yeah, I do enjoy a nice slice of turkey if it's cooked well. I'll say for me, underrated, I enjoy sweet potato casserole. Little marshmallows on top, little sweet potatoes. I think that's underrated. I know it's sometimes a little controversial pick. Some houses don't put it out there. but I enjoy it. Joe, let everybody know about our Black Friday sale as well. A lot of people purchasing things on Black Friday. Most of the things you purchase on Black Friday are not going to help you win money, but a Fantasy Point subscription will.
Yeah, this is going to be the best deal that you're going to get all year. It's going to be a 24-hour window where you can get a Fantasy Point subscription for like change that you can find in your couch. NFL Standard, NFL Premium, and our all-in package are all going to be, I mean, severely discounted, Theo. And so you're going to want to check that out on Black Friday for anybody who is not currently subscribed. Also, pay attention to your email, but the Black Friday sale, pay attention to Fantasy Point socials. It is going to happen for a 24-hour window. You will be glad you did.
Yeah, and we're not just hitting on our weekly rankings. Obviously, you're going to get access to Tom's Waiver Wire article, my Waiver Wire article, all of our amazing rankings, all of our amazing tools, but you're also going to get access on certain packages to our DFS content. We've been running pure there. I had another strong DFS week. Tom has been giving out prop bet winners all season long. We're hitting at an extremely high rate in multiple facets of fantasy. Give yourself a gift of winning fantasy football with Fantasy Points. It makes a great Christmas present, a great Hanukkah present, or a great present for yourself. And if you're looking for an edge, if you've been listening to this podcast, you're not a Fantasy Points subscriber, now's the time to push the chips in. You're going to make the fantasy playoffs. Give yourself another edge to help you win your league. And Tom, let's talk about the wide receivers, because there's not like a whole lot of like, free plays out here. This is kind of a week where you're building depth for the playoffs. We're trying to look at a couple of players who maybe their roles are increasing as the season moves along, and maybe we get to week 15 and we consider using one in a flex. Let's first give a reminder about Pat Bryant, who had a strong week in week 11. Denver was just on their bye week. Is there a scenario where we see Pat Bryant ramped up coming out of the bye, and this is a little bit of self-scouting, and Denver says, one of the keys we're going to have is an increased usage for Pat Bryant, a big slot?
I would hope so, but we are talking about Sean Payton and the Broncos here. He does love to rotate his receivers, but he's certainly earned more reps moving forward. I don't think he's ever going to be a 75% of the routes type of player, at least this season towards the end of the year. But I do think he's earned more reps over like a Marvin Mims, who's been a part-time player. So he might be forgotten about, but he did have 5 catches for 82 yards against the Chiefs before their bye. It was a 56% snap share as well. So, he's trending up. We're always looking towards these rookies at this time of year. And as you said, he's a big slot receiver. We have a struggling quarterback with Bo Nix. He provides some of those, easy targets, a big catch radius, and it's a player that Bo Nix kind of needs right now in working those underneath and intermediate areas of the field. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does see, more reps here as the season moves along, but it is Sean Payton at the end of the day. So we can't expect a full-time role.
Joe, let's kick it over to you. We saw Andrei Iosivas this past week filling in for Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase is now going to be back this week, but T. Higgins suffered a concussion. Yeah. Your enthusiasm level for Iosivas now in the T. Higgins role?
That we're probably going to get Joe Burrow in this game for Cincinnati, who somehow at 3-8 is still alive because that AFC North, Pittsburgh's kind of reeling. The Ravens have absolutely no interest in looking like a competent NFL football team on offense. So I will have some interest in Iosivas with Joe Burrow likely back in that game. There are other names here that we're talking about that I would prefer, but look, Iosivas led the Bengals in receiving in that game on Sunday. So I will have some interest in him on Thanksgiving, and I think he's going to be brutally popular on the Thanksgiving DFS slate.
100%. He's going to be the chalk because he's going to be cheap, and you're going to plug him in there and you're going to hope for a Joe Burrow touchdown. We saw multiple Andrei Iosivas touchdowns last year with Joe Burrow. Why not? But Tom, could the edge be going with Mike Gesicki instead? Last year we had sort of a weird trend where Gesicki was sort of almost handcuffed to T. Higgins for multiple weeks of the year. I know in when you were writing Waiver Wire last year, when I was writing the Waiver Wire last year, we had like several Mike Gesicki weeks, and he actually really hit at a high level. Do you think he could be the big beneficiary of no T. Higgins instead?
I think so. We saw it this past week. He comes off the IR, not a whole lot of reps, and immediately sees 6 targets and finishes with 35 yards and 4 catches. So we got another scenario here where Higgins is going to miss at least this week. It was a pretty scary looking injury. So there's a chance it could extend into week 14 as well. So and we said we got Joe Burrow back here. Ryan Heath broke it down in his 5 stats to know what Gesicki in 6 games without Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, he's basically averaging 58 receiving yards per game, 7 targets per game, and 12.6 fantasy points per game. So those are phenomenal numbers at the tight end position. We're always kind of struggling there. So, and then we're going to get Joe Burrow back. So I like it a lot here. Maybe his snaps and his routes also increase this week. Getting a game under his belt. They are still heavily rotating these tight ends, but Gesicki is definitely moves up the pecking order here. He's kind of a go-to receiver for these quarterbacks in Cincinnati anytime Higgins or Chase are out.
Joe, we had Chim DK as a player that we were excited to add back in like week 7, week 8. Week 9 was a little bit quiet for him. And then week 11, a lot of fantasy managers cut him after that one. He exited the game with a chest injury. And there was kind of some doubts that he might not play in week 12. Not only did he play, but he had a season high 21.4 PPR points. Had 7 targets, which was nice, 5 catches for 44 yards, but he scored a touchdown on one of them. And you get the bonus that Chim DK is one of the best return men in football right now. Had a punt return for 90 yards and a touchdown. And he also had 5 kickoff returns for 98 yards. So if you play in a league where special teams points count, Chim DK is like an edge pick for you right now. But where are you at on him in traditional PPR leagues right now? Should we get excited about him? I will say Cam Ward looked pretty good against that Seattle defense at times.
I actually think Cam Ward has looked pretty good all year. And like relative to what the perception of him is, because he's like the lowest scoring quarterback in the history of fantasy football. But like, I actually think he's acquitted himself well on a team that has 0 talent. And now the thing for DK now, obviously, Ian Manner's banged up. Calvin Ridley's on IR. I think he's more of like a wide receiver 4. I don't want to get too excited here because he's gone up and over 20 receiving yards only 3 times all season. Now he scored in both of those games. He now has 2 games this year, by the way, in which he has a receiving touchdown and a return touchdown in the same game. But this is somebody I consider more of a wide receiver 4, but certainly somebody who I think Cam Ward is going to lean on as somebody who can make an explosive play. The Titans, they have not given their fans a lot to cheer about this year, but they have a keeper in Chim DK, somebody who's going to be a really good player in the league and on multiple units.
Yeah, 100%. He's very, very explosive, and I think wide receiver 4 is a proper valuation. I had hoped we could turn him into sort of a wide receiver 3, but again, the offense sort of brings him down. But if I'm going to throw a dart at a situation and have to use a wide receiver 4 in my lineup, it might as well be a young player with this sort of juice, and I get the added benefit that, hey, in my league, I still get points for that return touchdown. If he gets you one in week 16, week 17, hey, that'll be a legendary performance. Tom, Michael Wilson was obviously picked up last week everywhere. He had 18 targets in week 11, followed it up with 15 targets, 10 catches, 118 yards this past week. But sort of under the radar has been Greg Dortch. Greg Dortch has had back-to-back weeks with 6 catches, had a touchdown also in back-to-back weeks, 16.8 points in week 12, 18.6 points in week 11. Is there a chance when Marvin Harrison Jr. returns, Wilson and Harrison Jr. sort of cannibalize each other on the outside, and Greg Dortch still gives you this like low floor but safe kind of floor play out of the slot?
I don't think so. I think once Harrison gets back, I think Michael Wilson's going to continue to see a lot of his targets. They're going to feed Marvin Harrison most weeks. So I would probably move away from Dortch once Harrison does come back, but maybe we'll get another game here with Greg Dortch as the number 3 receiver in this offense. They ruled out Harrison very quickly, very early last week. Didn't really, no signs that he would practice or anything. So it might be a pretty strict timeline here. Maybe Harrison sits out another game or two after this appendectomy. But I would probably look elsewhere if once Harrison does return to the lineup, because then you got three guys in that offense that are going to command targets. So I don't think I would go for him in that scenario when Harrison does come back.
And Joe, not really a waiver wire question because, again, Wilson was picked up everywhere last week. But my question to you is there a chance that Wilson just operates as the de facto wide receiver one in this offense for the rest of the year, with Harrison Jr. taking a back seat? How do you put this back in the bag? Jacoby Brissett has targeted this guy 33 times in the last 2 weeks. Besides Malik Neighbors and Puka Nacua, there hasn't really been a wide receiver targeted at this volume in 2 consecutive weeks, like over the last 2 years.
No, I don't think you can put this back in the tube.
Jamar Chase.
I don't think you can put this back in the tube at all. There's just no chance. I mean, like Michael Wilson's had 2 games that Marvin Harrison's never had before. Now, maybe the way Jacoby Brissett is playing also gives Marvin Harrison a little bit of a boost. But no, this is not going back in the tube. And I would say, until further notice, I would take a guess that we will be having Michael Wilson projected ahead of Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, and Michael Wilson, again, is a 3rd-year player. This is not like some guy doing this in like year 7 out of nowhere. Wilson could have been just sort of a little bit of a late bloomer here. Yep. Wilson is also, like, last year there was multiple times we were writing about him in the waiver wire column. He's had some solid games, but Jacoby Brissett's really, really unlocked him. So when we go and do sort of a wrap-up show at the end of the year, guys, best waiver wire ads of the year, Michael Wilson is potentially a starting wide receiver for us. So wild times out in the desert. The Jacoby Brissett effect is absolutely real. Tom, let's talk about John Metchie. This is a great story to see. John Metchie, of course, was a 2nd-round pick coming out of Alabama. Had horrible health issues he had to deal with. And now he's sort of bounced back in New York here, running, dare I say it, as the Jets wide receiver 1. And this is significant because it's the first start with Tyrod Taylor behind center. Metchie had 13 points in Week 11 against New England, had a touchdown, only 3 catches in that one, but doubles it up, has 6 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown, earned 7 targets, and Adonai Mitchell very much operating as the wide receiver too. I think sort of the dreams and hopes of us Adonai Mitchell truthers, we're going to take a back seat, and now we're kind of rooting for John Metchie. Are you there with a little bit of enthusiasm with this Taylor-Metchie connection being at least somewhat like, let's say, 6 to 8 targets a week?
Yeah, I think it could continue here. Especially, it does seem like Tyrod Taylor should get most of the starts moving forward here. And we've seen this offense, the passing game, looks much better anytime Tyrod Taylor's at quarterback. And doesn't seem like we're going to get Garrett Wilson back this year. Still on IR. I think he still has 2 more games where he has to be on IR. So we'll see in a couple of weeks if Wilson is going to be back in the mix. But if not, they've started to take some routes and some snaps away from Mason Taylor, giving them to Jeremy Ruckert. So I think there's room for both Mitchell and Metchie to stay relevant in this offense with Tyrod Taylor running it. So, it's two solid to strong performances for Metchie since he became a starter here. And he's going to be the number 1 target if Wilson is not in the mix. And we do think the Jets are going to be trailing most weeks. So there's chance that he could, rack up some catches in these negative game scripts in the back half of the season here. So I do think he's very viable, especially if you're in a 14-team league where, it's pretty thin at the receiver position. I do think he's worth a pickup, and he could be a flex play down the stretch.
Yeah, we're absolutely rooting for John Metchie. A quick reminder to make sure, comb through your leagues, make sure Luther Burden was in fact picked up. All of the Chicago rookies are trending up at this point. Luther Burden looked really good yesterday. All right, let's talk about it. Joe, a great return game for Brenton Strange. We talked about this last week. Shout out to Tom. Tom talked about Brenton Strange last week on the show, and people should pick him up. Tom reminded everybody that Brenton Strange was the leading receiver for Jacksonville before he was injured. Your thoughts on his first game back? Is this something where Brenton Strange is in the low-end, tight end 1 conversation moving forward?
Yep. I mean, he has been when he's been active this year. He's obviously been reliable in a way that Brian Thomas Jr. has not been. Look, he's had at least 3 catches in all of his full games this year. So I think he's absolutely in the mix, and he hasn't gotten in the end zone yet. So we'll see if that's coming. But somebody who can catch passes with that sort of consistency is always in the mix for me. I'm very interested in Brenton Strange.
Yeah, I think Brenton Strange is easily the best tight end ad available on the wire. It's not even close. We talked about Gesicki potentially with his streaming viability, but Brenton Strange, if you're sort of dealing with tight end issues, maybe you lost a Sam Laporta, maybe you lost a Dalton Kincaid, Brenton Strange is a set it and forget it player for you, and he's been consistent. So we're looking for Brenton Strange to end the season well. Tom, let's talk about Darren Waller, though. Sort of a reminder that Darren Waller could be coming back. He was another player that ran incredibly pure when we first picked him up off the wire.
Yeah, scored touchdowns in his first 3 games, including I think he had a 2-touchdown performance in there as well. So in his last full game before he left the lineup, because part of our thinking was, well, he's just going to be like a 50% of the routes type of guy. No, he was up to a 75% route share in his last full game. So he was becoming a full-time player after they ramped him up after a couple of weeks. So he's 20% owned in Yahoo leagues. So there's a chance he might be out there on your waiver wire. Mike McDaniel, before the bye, he was talking after week 12 there, mentioned that they could get multiple guys back from the injured reserve. Didn't name anybody by name, but Darren Waller obviously would be high on that list of potential players to come back. So, and if you look at the schedule, weeks 15 and 16, he gets the Steelers and Bengals. 2 very good matchups for tight ends. So I think he's the player I would be targeting the most behind Devin Neal this week if he's out there and available. I think he could be very valuable down the stretch. As you mentioned, Sam Laporta owners could be hurting right now. He was a top 5, top 8 type of option at the position. Now maybe he can pick up Darren Waller and maybe he can fill a lot of that production. And we've seen him score a bunch of touchdowns already in his limited time in the lineup.
Yeah, and I'll preface it like this one. You just mentioned Waller. So you would take Waller if, let's say, Waller, we find out he's coming back this week. Are you going Waller or Brenton Strange?
I'm going Waller. I think I do worry about Strange here. Where I would expect Brian Thomas back this week. He almost played this in week 12. At some point, there's going to be too many mouths to feed in Jacksonville for a quarterback who's frankly struggling right now in Trevor Lawrence. So, it's Parker Washington. Jacoby Myers has looked, pretty darn good here the last 2 weeks. And then we could get Brian Thomas Jr. back. And I do worry that Strange could get pinched a little bit down the stretch. But believe me, I still like Strange. I think he could be a low-end tight end 1. I just think Darren Waller in that depleted Dolphins receiving core, I think he could have some big games down the stretch.
Joe, Waller or Strange, same scenario.
Probably Waller. I like the fact that they go to him in the red zone. Both guys have been hurt, so it's not like I can. Yeah. I mean, obviously Darren Waller has a very long track record of getting hurt, but I think I would go with Waller.
Yeah, I think I'm on Waller as well. I think it's an upside bet. Maybe you'd say Strange has sort of a safer floor, but Waller, we already saw the ceiling games in this offense. And Miami's really, really fighting here. So I like the idea of picking up Waller. I completely agree with Tom. Let's talk about Colby Parkinson briefly. Tom, wrap it up with him. He's sort of on a little bit of a heater. It was a lot of different mouths to feed among tight ends of in LA, and they were sort of cannibalizing one another. But Parkinson's sort of come out of the wreckage here as the most consistent fantasy scorer. And you like this tight end schedule coming up.
Yeah, it's very nice. Carolina, Arizona, Detroit, and Seattle. So some nice matchups for tight ends in the upcoming the upcoming month here. But yeah, Parkinson's been up above a 60% snap share in back-to-back games. Of course, that's corresponds with Tyler Higbee picking up the ankle injury in week 11, landing on the IR this past week before week 12. So Higbee's out for at least the next 3 games. It's still a pretty deep tight end room with Terrence Ferguson and Davis Allen also still involved, but Parkinson's snaps have increased here a little bit. And I think we just want to get somebody that's attached to Matthew Stafford right now, leading the league in touchdown passes, averaging 2.7 touchdowns per game right now. We've seen Parkinson score in 3 straight games. We know this offense is going to run through Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, but if I'm truly desperate at the tight end position and I'm just like throwing a dart, I would do it with Colby Parkinson. We're seeing more snaps. We like the schedule, and I think he has more touchdown upside than a lot of these other really low-end tight end options right now.
Joe, we've seen multiple veteran quarterbacks make fantasy impacts. Joe Flacco, obviously, in Cincinnati, Jacoby Brissett in Arizona, and then from a one-game perspective, Jameis Winston was really, really good yesterday. 2-game sample size for Jameis. Could Teddy Bridgewater be the next sort of backup quarterback to take over and put up some okay fantasy numbers? The offensive ecosystem in Tampa Bay would support it, and this is a very troubling injury for Baker Mayfield. It's the non-throwing shoulder, but it sounds like, I mean, I don't even want to try to guess how long Baker Mayfield's going to miss with this. I'm sure we'll get a lot more information. We're, again, recording this on Monday morning. But your thoughts on Teddy Bridgewater in this offense if he does have the opportunity?
At the very least, the schedule's pretty good. I mean, Baker never looked right in that game at all. That was a game that, quite frankly, I was like, sometimes this time of year, even us, I understand I have a cool job, and sometimes you need to take a break from football. I was like, the Rams in that first quarter gave me an opportunity to take a little break from football last night. But Baker never looked right. Teddy Bridgewater, at the very least, comes out. He's got Ed Buka. He's got Chris Godwin back. Arizona, New Orleans, Atlanta, the next 3 games. Pretty good schedule for somebody if you need to pick up and start Teddy Bridgewater. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I'm not going to try to sit here and spin it any more than it being fine, but it's fine.
Tom, your thoughts on Marcus Mariota, Washington coming out of their bye week? We saw Mariota again have 49 rushing yards against Miami. I think that's sort of the hope for him. Detroit, he was solid. Miami, if you used him in Superflex, you sort of got by. Denver this week in Washington.
Yeah.
Then at Minnesota, at the New York Giants, Philly in Washington, and again, week 17 against Dallas.
Yeah, I'm not loving him necessarily this week against that Denver defense. We've seen Denver shut down most quarterbacks here, one of the toughest defenses to face for quarterbacks. We also have the Jaden Daniels piece here. It's an injury that he could return from, but the question is, does Washington want to play him again with a season that's kind of going nowhere? But I do think in the upcoming weeks 14 and 15 against the Vikings and Giants, he could certainly be viable. And we know that he's running around a little bit. That's always been part of his game. And he does give you at least like a fantasy floor based on that running production. So I don't know if I'm too excited to play him this week. We are back to a full schedule. All 32 teams are in action. So I would like to avoid Mariota if I could this week, but I do think he could be a play in week 14 and 15.
Yeah, and we've talked about Tyler Shough in previous weeks. 243 passing yards in New Orleans, lost to Atlanta yesterday. Again, conceding some of those wildcat quarterback snaps to Taysom Hill. Very annoying situation if you picked up Shough in Superflex, but I do feel like he's trending up. Let's talk about Tyrod Taylor. Joe, your thoughts on Taylor, his first start in New York. Is he a quarterback that we think could pick up the production? Baltimore was a tough matchup. That defense is playing well lately. Your overall thoughts on Tyrod, specifically for Superflex managers?
Yeah, I mean, he added 19 yards rushing, so he's not going to run the way he used to, obviously. The schedule is okay. Atlanta can get after the quarterback a little bit, which is the funny part about trading their first-round pick. They still shouldn't have done it, but James Pierce can at least get after the quarterback. Then Miami, and then a tough one at Jacksonville. I prefer him to Teddy Bridgewater, but Bridgewater has better weapons at least. But Tyrod was throwing the ball to John Metchie and A.D. Mitchell, so I prefer him to Bridgewater just because of the rushing upside.
Yeah, and Tom, 3 wins in a row for Davis Mills. Beat Buffalo this past week. That was a significant one for Houston, but it could be the return of C.J. Stroud this week on the road in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I would think so. They had the short week to play to get him ready for Thursday night, and it just wasn't enough time in week 12. So we'll see if there's any kind of controversy here in Houston. But I do think they'll go back to Stroud whenever he is healthy enough to play. And I think he was actually starting to turn the corner a little bit right before he suffered the concussion. In his last 4 full games, he threw for 2 touchdowns in every one of those games and got to 3 out of the 4 games here, and got to 18 fantasy points. So he was playing better football here. We got to see Jaden Higgins a little bit on Thursday night. He's emerging as another potential weapon for him. The offense is just, it was epically bad at the beginning of the season, and now they're starting to move closer to league average here, which it puts him back into the picture here of fantasy quarterbacks that we could look to use. Maybe the schedule isn't great here. He's got the Chiefs coming up in week 14. He's got the Colts this week, but I do think if Stroud has been dropped, which he may have been with this prolonged absence, I do think he should be picked up and considered in 2 QB leagues.
Yeah, and Stroud does have Arizona in week 15 and Vegas in week 16. Yep. Road matchup against the Chargers in week 17. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Jaden Higgins, another wide receiver that we recommended you pick up, and he's playing just fantastic. Guys, great show today. Make sure you're sticking up with Fantasy Points all season long. Check out our written works over at fantasypoints.com. Make sure you're checking out our Black Friday sale. It makes for a fantastic gift. You can also just gift it to yourself and give yourself an edge in your fantasy playoffs. This is a great week to grind on the waiver wire. 3 games on Thursday. Enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday. Stick with us here at Fantasy Points. We're going to help you crush the fantasy playoffs this season.